But don't say that. That's secret.
Is that a secret?
That's a secret.
Okay.
We've been telling everyone that it's a secret for them to discover. My name is Mike. I'm a design master on the LEGO Icons team, and we're here today with some of the designers of the fellowship that created the LEGO Icons Lord of the Rings Rivendell model. So, like I said, my name is Mike, and I have with me Wes.
Hi, I'm Wes, also design master, not from the Icons team, but I was on loan to help with this one.
I'm Chris. I'm a senior designer, also a model designer who helped build this creation. Again, not on the Icons team, but I was here for this project.
My name is Ashwin. I'm a senior graphic designer. I am on the Icons team, and I did I was the graphic lead on all the graphics together with a bunch of other talented designers.
Cool, brilliant. Thank you very much for your time, all of you. So my first question is why, basically. Why was now the right time for Lord of the Rings to come back, and why this particular form of Lord of the Rings?
That's a great question. When we know the answer, we'll let you know. We have been proposing... So I started at LEGO in 2012. Wes, you started in 2013. Chris, you started in 2016?
16 as a designer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you started, Ashwin, you started
19.
So we've actually been in all those years, we've been proposing very many times, could we do the Lord of the Rings as a new theme? We have creative boosts where we get to kind of pitch any ideas that we want to have. And this is something that we've been talking about for 10 years to do. So I can't say exactly why specifically now was the exact right time to do it. I can just say that I was very excited to get to be involved and get to be a part of it and see this thing that we've been pushing for so long finally come to fruition. Yeah. I don't know if you guys know the reason why, but if you do, you probably should have played.
No.
It's just a matter of the Lego group says build this, and you're like, yes, definitely, that's cool.
Well, it's not so much like that. It's more like we've been saying for years and years, hey, we're going to build this. And then eventually someone says, oh, yeah, we want that. So I think that's a better...
Sometimes ideas stay as ideas, and sometimes they get the green light to go and make it a product, and so that's always exciting when it happens.
I mean, a lot of it had to do with the fact that we wanted to do Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
We knew that much. What it was, we knew that, of the things that we had touched from 10 years ago and the other models, Rivendell was one of the few areas that was just had a very small model. There wasn't a lot to it. And we felt like we could do a lot more with that setting, with this type of offering.
Yeah, so when we started out on this journey that began in summer of 2021, I think, is that correct?
Yeah. That sounds right.
It was the Lord of the Rings is on the table. What's it going to be? And we were throwing around a lot of different ideas. And I think, Wes, you were the one that was most set on let's do Rivendell. And you built a concept model at a micro figure scale of the entire thing.
Style. Yeah.
And so we actually, we were debating a lot of different locations, but like Wes said, Rivendell just offered something that had not existed. We there's a Council of Elrond set from 2013, I think, that does depict some of the moments that you see here, but it doesn't really capture kind of the whole feeling,
the scale,
and emotion of the location. Yeah. And we also just felt okay, we've just done Lion Knight's Castle, which is this big, awesome gray castle. So, one of the things that Lord of the Rings is known for is all these kind of epic locations, Minas Tirith or Helm's Deep, or the city of Edoras, the Mines of Moria. We thought maybe at some point we can do something like that, but let's start with something that's totally fresh and unique. And Rivendell just felt like an awesome place to be. We're also considering quite heavily to go back to Bag End, but when we were looking at the original sets, we just felt the Bag End set that was released in conjunction with the Hobbit movies was a really great model, and of course we can do something bigger and more more in depth and more advanced and more crafted, but is it really necessary? Do we really provide so much more? Whereas we felt with Rivendell, we can definitely take this one up to 11, no problem.
Yeah. You also get the Fellowship as many figures immediately.
Yeah.
Which is something you just know people are going to want. You're going to want the full Fellowship in minifigs, and so the set where the Fellowship of the Ring literally comes together makes a lot of sense.
That was also like part of our reasoning for going away from the micro scale model and more towards this minifigure scale model. We knew like, okay, we want to include all the Fellowship, and then with the micro scale version, it's like, we have all these great characters, but then we can't actually like play with them. Even though we say like we're making these things for adults, we still like to at least pretend that it's a toy and that you can do this kind of role play and put the figures in and play around a little bit and start to create your own stories. And it's not quite as fun to do that when you have this micro scale model where you can't really put anyone. So that was also part of what drove us towards this expression.
I'm going to jump, since we talk about minifigures, let's talk about minifigures. So we've got the Fellowship, yes, and we've got generic elf number 1 and generic elf number 2, and we've got Gloin. What was the thinking? Obviously, the Fellowship had to be included. What was the thinking beyond the additional minifigures?
Sorry, I'm just going to correct you on that because this is not actually Gloin.
Okay, sorry.
And I very specifically say that because I've been told to say that. So just to be clear, this is meant to be a generic dwarf. So when we were like. We went back and watched the movie all together, actually up in our one of our big meeting rooms up here. We have this huge screen, and we went back and watched the movie, and we're like looking for all the little details. And we thought one of the things that is cool about the council scene is like all of these different races of characters coming together to decide the fate of the ring. So we thought like we can go beyond just the Fellowship because there's a lot of extra characters there in that scene in the movie. So we wanted to include extra characters that are at the council meeting, but then also this is Rivendell, the home of the elves. I don't remember the exact lines, but when the hobbits are with Aragorn and they're like going through the marshes or whatever, and Sam's like, "Where's he taking us anyway?" And then what does Aragorn say? He's like, "To the house of Elrond." I don't remember what he says, right? But Sam's like, "Did you hear that? We're going to see the elves." We thought we want to include more than just 1 or 2 elves if it's the home of the elves. So that's why we added the 2 generic elf characters.
So those are the 2 elves that Sam was excited to meet.
Yeah, we're seeing to see the elves. Those are the ones. Yeah, nice. We also had with this family mold of elements that we made, we had extra axes. So in the council scene, the like in the history of Middle Earth, the dwarves and the elves don't have such a great relationship. They're a bit tense between the 2 of them. So it's actually pretty special that the dwarves are here at all. But in the scene in the movie, everyone has come to the council in peace, but all of the dwarves are like fully armed. So we thought it would be cool to have another character to give some axes to for the council meeting.
I think Sting was the sword that we knew we needed to include in some way. And because it had been so many years since we had last done Lord of the Rings Lego sets, we didn't have the molding equipment anymore for that one. So we knew we'd have to bring back a new mold to make that sword. And then we were discussing how are we going to do the Narsil blade, which is broken, on the statue, because we knew that's like, a very iconic scene and a very important part of this entire model. So we needed to do that some way as well. And so we were trying all sorts of weird things about how are we going to show a broken Lego sword? I think you had a great idea of trying to show people how to freeze their plastic sword to the right temperature so they could drop it and then break it.
Yeah. Minus 75 Celsius.
Yeah. So,
don't try that at home.
We tried a whole bunch of fun ideas.
Dry ice is pretty close.
Yeah. So we had a few options, but the one that made the most sense was to just mold it out of plastic like a normal Lego piece instead of doing a chemistry experiment. So when we were making elements, it comes together in like a little pre-pack, and that's because we can do, I think Mike just mentioned it before, a family mold where it's a whole bunch of pieces molded in one cavity and then it kind of drops into a bag. So because of that, we're able to add more designs within one mold, and that was really cool because then we could do things like Gimli's axes, we could do Boromir's broadsword, we could do another sword for Aragorn. So we could kind of do more and more elements that way. And we also have the Elven blades. And that was just kind of a really nice opportunity to do a bunch of these more specific Middle-earth weapon designs that we wouldn't have done otherwise, or haven't done.
There's a lot of really cool design elements in this. So for example, like the...
But don't say that! That's secret.
Is that a secret?
That's a secret. We've been telling everyone that it's a secret for them to discover. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Maybe I can phrase that question as, was there any hesitation in including that secret?
Yeah. Or is there a way to align all those roof tiles other than twisting them? There is. And it was quite unorthodox to do and took a lot of convincing to get that into the building instructions. We did a few different tests with different people to make sure it worked okay. We had to look at some of the the actual tolerances of the elements to make sure the parts interacted the way that we wanted them to interact. But it was funny because I think we had originally proposed it as kind of a joke.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then as we were building the model, actually this works great. Can we do this in the building instructions? And our building instructions developer was like, please no. No, please can we do it? So we're really happy that it made it in. And everyone better go home and build the set. Or at least, I guess you can look at the Lego.com building instructions, but that
page is missing online.
It. Yeah. Oh yeah, we should.
Yeah, we'll just take it out that one page offline. So
we definitely have that palette. We'll do that. Yeah. Just pixelate the.
So let's talk about the gazebo then.
It was definitely the most difficult part of the set, and I think I say that because I sketched up a gazebo way at the very start, and we felt it was good but not great. It was a little flimsy, a little fragile. It looked great, but it was how do we communicate how to build it? Because that's always the tricky part when you're designing a Lego set, is that it's going to be given to all sorts of people. Maybe they're they've built a lot of stuff on their own, maybe they haven't, and so how do you communicate how to build it? Is it too fragile? Is it too flimsy? And such an airy, elegant, detailed, ornate structure, it's hard to make super rigid. So the first one we had, it was this is okay, but we'll probably need to try to improve upon it. We'll get to it. And I think it was one of those things that was always on the back of our minds. Every time we were working on this model, we're like, oh, that gazebo. Yeah,
I forgot about it.
We'll find a solution for that. And then we just kind of, put it off. And it kind of hit the point where we're like, we really need to figure out how we're going to solve this. We kept hoping an idea would kind of hit. And be like, this is the way to do it. So at the end, it was a true collaboration between the three of us model designers building it, because we were all trying out different ideas and different connections. And I think this is the best example of our three brains working together to come up with a solution, because we're almost kind of building in each other's hands, where it was oh, you built the bottom ring, I was building the top piece, Mike was figuring out how to make the circle, and then it all just lined up, and we're like, we've done it. It's done. We finished it. So yeah, true group effort.
A lot of the stickers that you see in the set are made by Madison O'Neill, who normally works in Star Wars, but he is such a huge fan of Lord of the Rings that he really wanted to help putting this thing together, and so he worked a lot on the paintings that you see in the main building. And I think at one point, because we were working with so many designers at once, there are a certain amount of colors that you can use due to production. So it was when everything was thrown on one pile, we had to figure out the right color combination that we could do in all of the stickers. So that was quite a thing to figure out.
I think the funniest graphic was was it the ship, or was it it was this one. We had done this, which I believe is City in Numenor, I think is what it is of. And we had this graphic on the sticker sheet, and we were sending it for approval, and they're like, what is that? And we're like, that's the painting from the movie. We were pulling up a reference from the set of Rivendell, where you're just it's exactly this. And they're just yeah, carry on.
With designing stickers, you also have to check for reference all the time. So it's usually you just have the movie on one of your side screens while you're working. And sometimes you pick up stuff that you haven't seen before, which is always a kind of nice experience.
I bet that was the most difficult sticker for you to finalize, because we gave you so much trouble about it.
Yeah, and that also had to be integrated with the build. And then the guys were saying oh, could you have the the sleeves of the character like flow into the side build, and I was like, okay, so it's like a lot of measuring and a lot of trying, and but yeah, they're always up for a challenge, those guys.
But we also, Ashwin and I spent a ton of time, which Ashwin might regret, but I really loved making the floor tiles that you see.
Yeah.
There are 64 of this floor tile, and then we
It's
also
not a sticker.
which is not a
No.
sticker. And then
So we have
also,
3 different designs, right?
Yeah. So we have this one that we have 64 of, and then we have 2 different designs that are used to make up the kind of compass or whatever it is that's
No.
I can't get the
below the council ring.
And there's
And-
one more.
I love doing geometry stuff. And these were like real geometry puzzles to figure out. And I kept coming to Ashwin and be like, no, Ashwin, we have to move it like 0.1 millimeters, like this M. It needs to have this thickness.
There you
And
are.
Yes, thank you. It was
I don't
so,
know how many iterations of those you went through on my behalf.
at one point
but
we were so focused at it because you have your design and it had to be repetitive all over the floor. But at one point, Mike even came to my desk and he said, I figured it out, he said. Because if you put 2 tiles together, there's like this little airspace between the elements that you kind of don't see, but is there. And we even calculate that one in our geometric
so like
design to make it repetitive.
there's like the geometry of the shape. There's a geometry of the area that we can decorate on. There's like everything was going into making this one work
Yes.
correctly. And hopefully people appreciate it when they tile the floor, the way everything kind of starts to tessellate. Is that the right word?
Sure.
But we definitely spent a lot of time looking at the reference of what is in the model. So you better go watch the movie like 30 times to appreciate all of this level of detail.
And the ring, like the star in the center of the council ring,
Yeah.
figuring out what shape that
That's a
curve
whole
should
other
be,
thing.
so those points would all meet up.
I think we try to integrate indeed the area that we cannot print because the prints are not going edge to edge. So we even calculate that one in. If you put 2 tiles together, that there is like an extra line or like in the design that
That's
calculated
that
in.
was your dream, right?
I did it. It's there. So one problem we ran into with the characters that are wearing the dress element is that they cannot be seated down when they are attending the council. Yes. So we were thinking about different things, like do we then need to include legs that can be folded down, but then we don't have the print on the dress. So we were like kind of playing with this idea, like what can we do? And I think one of you 3 came with the idea of what if we can include a slope piece with the same exact print on the piece. We take the figure like apart and we attach like the slope piece with a little bit of a side build, change his hair, and then he can be seated down at the council. And we had this with 2 characters, so we have the same with Elrond, who has then the same print shared on both elements. And it's something we've never done before, so we also had to ask permission within our like design governance, so to say, to get this approved. And but they saw the intention of it and what we wanted to achieve, and that it was really needed to have that entire council sitting down. So yeah, we were quite happy with this result and that we were able to do this. And we even did it with the hobbits on a different way.
Yeah, so we just used some of the headlight or Erling brick, we call it, and then you can add the bare feet, and then they can also sit down, which is just
They got little pockets in the back.
yeah, little Lego pockets in the back. But the being able to do the hobbit legs and the 2 different color plastics was something we were also super excited about, because the whole like bare feet thing, something that we missed from the original line. So yeah, I mean, there was so much work that went into these characters, kind of even though I think you guys were quite restrained and not like just completely starting over from what was there from the original Lord of the Rings line. We look at every one of them as like been upgraded in some way, whether it's like the dwarves with their new mid-length legs and new beards and helmets and weapons,
Every character has something
Yeah,
at least.
the hobbits have the 2K legs. We are actually thinking that Boromir would be one of the most least upgraded. Is that the right way to say that?
Yeah,
Most
that's
least
the right
upgraded.
way.
We thought Boromir would be the one that would end up most similar to his original expression, but he got a new sword, and then actually quite late we were like, oh yeah, Boromir has a shield. Ashwin, we got more deco work for you to do, buddy.
Make a shield.
But that also ended up just looking
We're so
super
focused
awesome.
on floor tiles, we forgot he had a shield.
Yeah. So Boromir got a new sword and a new shield, and then Ashwin gave him a super awesome new face as well. I don't know if that's been shown anywhere. Is that turned around or?
This is so nowadays the figures have like two expressions, right? You can turn the head around. So on one side he has like a more serious battle-ready face, but on the back side he has his one cannot simply walk into Mordor face. So you can really play the meme nowadays.
And we've done I don't want to boast or anything, but Boromir sits like somewhere in one of these two chairs, and if you get a nice like really tight focal length lens, we have all the right stuff in the background. You can create that shot almost one for one. So
That's kind of like
no
the
pressure,
starting
but-
point for the set, right?
Yeah.
It's how do we make that meme?
Yeah, what do we
for
have
the
to
set, right?
what do we have to do to be able to create that meme with the set? How much do we have to include? We need to get like the light from the branches coming through.
Yeah, the tree's there only for the shadow, for the meme shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we always try to make it as user friendly as possible, and of course with 18 plus you get a whole another level of detail, and we also prioritize that when we're designing it. Like we're okay to take some areas more complex than we normally would, because we know that the person buying this is probably going to be able to understand a little bit more than a younger kid would. But at the same time, we don't want to make something complicated just for the sake of being complicated. So it's always like as simple as we can get, and especially having like two other like really experienced model designers on here that have all built similar things in different models meant that we had a lot of experience to draw on to make sure that each section was as simplified and easy to build as possible.
And I think also because there was three of us working on it, we were able to kind of divide and conquer in certain areas, so we could really focus and like hone down on certain areas to try to figure out how can we get that funny build or that funny connection in and get all the details just right, which was really nice. We didn't have to...
But in general, when we're making a model for 18 plus, like for adults, there are some things that kind of like we get let a little bit off the leash, you could say. Just because of like what like the roof, right? Like in general, adults have a longer attention span than kids, so that's one thing, and just like their ability to comprehend is a little bit higher. But there are still some aspects of like what makes a great building experience doesn't really change just because you're older. So like a good example is like being able to tell the difference between 1x8 and a 1x10 plate in the same color. Like that doesn't actually get easier when you get older. Your mind doesn't develop in that way that like, oh, now I can all of a sudden see the difference. So there's things like that no matter what age mark we're designing for, we are still attempting to make like the volume of bricks as easy to search through as possible. So that's why you see more and more in a lot of the 18 plus sets, you're not getting these enormous bags with, I think Assembly Square has 1,000 parts per numbered bag or something, which is just, it's crazy to try to search through and find the parts that you need. Whereas when we break it down into smaller chunks, it's just a much more enjoyable building experience. But yeah, I do think that there's some quite tricky bits in this. Good luck to everyone to put it together.
I think the split line for the sections kind of happened organically when we were trying to figure out how do you move it, because it's a bit too big as one big unit, and then also where does it make sense to split. I think this section I think made sense pretty early on, that right before the bridge you would have the split line, but I think this one
Well, this one also makes sense because it just gives you accessibility to Bilbo's room, and also the downstairs. It just kind of makes a nice little end cap.
Yeah, we were originally splitting it just in two, and we had this super
The problem
awkward
corner. Yeah.
corner where, like, if we put in, we wanted to have this tower, and the tower has to be past the council ring, so like the model needs to come all the way over to here. But then what do you do in this space back here? So we originally had the corner cut at 45 degrees, but then there was no roof behind the tower, and like
We didn't even have a facade back
Yeah,
here.
we didn't
It was
have a
just-
facade or
it was
anything.
Kind
It
of
was
dollhouse
just-
style open.
yeah. And then I don't even remember how we got here. Honestly, I know that
I think we're
at
just
some point
unhappy.
I think at some point
Yeah.
we were just like, what if we put a facade on the end of the building? And we're like, how would that work? You wouldn't be able to access it. And then we're like, oh, we'll just split it off.
And then you get like, I don't know, this arch back here. Like it just becomes this clean kind of rectangular chunk.
Yeah. So this went from being like one of the most unresolved, confusing sections of the model to being like this super
Nice solid
elegant
bookend.
slice of Rivendell where you get like a facade that I would love to see someone double this up. I don't actually know how to do it because the roof is not symmetrical, but I'm sure you guys can figure it out. Double this up and have a second roof and double this facade and create like one of the entrances of the actual place. So that's, I don't know if it's possible with
I
just
think you just double up
pieces in one
those
brick.
keychain pieces probably.
Yeah, no. Well,
Oh yeah.
figure it out. We want to see that.
But it's also good having it split up into chunks for how you're gonna show how to build it in the building instructions. Because if you build the whole thing as one big unit, then you have to show everything on every step, and that becomes difficult to communicate where you're building. So
Yeah.
having it come apart into smaller chunks really helps with simplifying that.
It's not a rocket. It's not a rocket.
Yeah.
It's just,
And we also we like this idea as well. Like
Yeah.
if you've built it and you have it on display, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I need room for more Lego models, so I need to take this apart. Then you still want to have your council ring. You can just pop that out and keep it on your desk or something.
Yeah. If you're like, I want to take this apart so I have all those tiles to
Yeah.
play with,
Yeah.
then you can keep this together. And
And that kind of leads me to my last question that I had was, do you guys want to just give a quick no comment? Is there any more Lord of the Rings Lego coming?
I thought of a really good response to this. What was that response I thought of? That was really good.
So I don't know.
No comment?
that was good.
Started with no comments.
Yeah. I don't remember, but I had a no comment for this that was no comment, but slightly better than that, but no comment.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting.
We would love for there to be more Lord of the Rings Lego sets. I think
If it was up to us.
if it was up to us, there'd be way more Lord of the Rings Lego sets.
That's all I would do every day.
We don't really know what's up to us, so
Well, we do. No one's up to us. Not whether or not there's more Lord of the Rings.
Thank you.
Subscribe
Thanks.
to Brick Fanatics.
we've heard of Brick Fanatics.
Thanks, guys. That's